I'm Greg DePalma, and you're listening to Prime Sports Golf, brought to you by ProGolfWeekly.com, Covers.com, and UWager.eu with Jeff Shane, Brady Cannon, and Joel Cook on the Prime Sports Radio Network. On today's show, we'll preview this week's match play event by going inside the bracket with group analysis, bracket busters to watch, the latest odds, and of course our picks. And we'll also take an early look once again at the Masters and much more as Prime Sports Golf on the Prime Sports Radio Network starts now. All right, thanks again for joining us for a fun week of golf coverage along with our media partners at ProGolfWeekly.com and Covers.com for this Tuesday, the 20th of March, 2018. As the top 64 available players from the official World Golf Rankings as of March 12th will do battle this week in the WGC Dell Technologies Match Play event from Austin Country Club in Austin, Texas, with Dustin Johnson, the defending champ. Before we get started on breaking down the field, make sure to follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN and receive our latest opinions, on-demand programming alerts, including when every show is available on demand. And if you're looking for somewhere to wager and get fast, reliable payouts, you can click on the UWager banner on our website. Get started with wagering this week on the WGC Match Play event that starts tomorrow. Keep that in mind. It's a Wednesday start. And with a special $100 risk-free wager if you sign up this week when you make a $100 minimum deposit. Time to introduce my co-host to the show. He is a PGAtour.com contributor. You can find his first look reports every Friday prior to every event on the PGA Tour. Jeff Shane. And Jeff, Rory McIlroy continues the run of top players breaking losing droughts. He stole Tiger's thunder in winning last week at the Arnold Palmer Invitational. So I guess, believe it or not, maybe it's easy to believe he's now the favorite to capture his first green jacket in 1 week. How the odds and the minds of Las Vegas can change.
Well, and I guess I don't think Rory was very far from people's minds. They just needed something. And Rory found something. He went back to the Bears Club last week after missing the cut at Valspar, got a new putter, got a putting tip from Brad Faxon, something that actually he said cleared his head. Took a little time for it all to sink in, but speaking of sinking, that's all Rory did on the final 6 holes of the at Bay Hill on Sunday, and I'm not sure anybody could have caught Henrik Stenson, Justin Rose, or anybody.
All right, something's wrong with your phone connection there. But before we move on, I want to introduce our next guest. And, of course, he's on every week at this time for Inside Match Play, brought to you by Covers.com. Covers has the best handicapping data on the web for all major sports, including golf. So make sure to visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com. And for a limited time only, you get 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. Let's welcome back Covers.com golf handicapper Brady Cannon to Prime Sports Golf. And Brady, what do you think about Rory's chances at Augusta? Because that's it's not been an easy ride for him every year at Augusta.
Well, thanks for having me again, Greg, and good to talk with you again, Jeff. Rory certainly was incredible, and like Jeff said, everything he looked at went in. And I don't think that type of performance is going to necessarily carry over. I don't think anybody believes that can happen week in and week out. And Rory is not always the best putter either. He can get very hot, like he did. And we're going to see different surfaces at Augusta than we did at Bay Hill. So I don't expect him, he's going to have to make an adjustment to a different surface, likely a different speed, different undulation in the greens. So I don't necessarily expect to see that putting performance again. And I wouldn't want to lay money on him at the short odds. I think anybody at 10-1 to win the Masters, I think is a bad bet. I mean, there is such an incredible field, such incredible players that are all hot right now. Paul Casey, Tiger, Justin Rose. 10-1 just seems short on just about anybody to me right now.
Yeah, especially when you have golfers like Phil Mickelson sitting there at twice the money at 20-1. You mentioned Casey's 25-1. We talked about how hard it is to repeat it at the Masters, but still Garcia's 25-1. He can be somebody to watch this week. And then we didn't even mention about 10 or 15 other guys that will be in contention. So I hear you. But also, what about Tiger? Remember, we were talking about how quickly Tiger, the money had gone on him, and he was down to, what was he down to, 9-1 last week or something like that. So he's back up to 10-1 or in that area. He's still going to hover around, depending on which book you go to, at a too low number. And I think we saw that last week. It's just asking too much for him. It doesn't mean he can't win. It's just that when you're asking him to be one of the favorites, one of the top 3 or 4 favorites, that's asking too much.
Yeah, I agree, and he actually is the favorite here in town at the South Point. They're down to as low as 6-1 on Tiger, and I believe that's the same price that they have on Justin Thomas. But I agree with you. I mean, when you've got all these guys, DJ, the number 1 player in the world, Justin Rose, ranked number 5, Justin Thomas, ranked number 2, I don't see how Tiger can have the same odds as them. And the reason he does is because of all the action he's garnering. It doesn't necessarily mean the books feel that those are his true odds. But it's kind of funny, you know, it was just a few weeks ago that we were kind of poo-pooing the fact that somebody was, you know, betting on Tiger at 20 or 25-1 to win the Masters. And right now that looks like a pretty good ticket to have in your pocket.
All right, let's go to this week's event in Texas, Austin Country Club. I was going over some of the scores last year, some of the results last year, and it looked to me that, especially with Dustin Johnson winning, that there were quite a bit of bombers out there, heavy hitters that seemed to do pretty well. Is that the case?
Well, yeah, it certainly was the case last year, and you know, the year before we saw some long hitters do well as well in Rory McIlroy, Louis Oosthuizen, and Jason Day. And so I think, you know, one thing that benefits the long hitter out here, the fairways aren't especially narrow, and they can really attack the par 5s. They can reach these par 5s in 2 shots. A lot of the field can really reach these par 5s in 2, but the longer hitters just have that much more advantage on the longer holes. There's also a drivable par 4 out here that you know, they can maybe take 3-wood into even and have a little bit more control than some of the shorter hitters. But, you know, it really is a risk-reward golf course. So while these guys are being aggressive off the tee, the longer hitters, they can get into trouble, too. There's a lot of water out here. There's some very deep bunkers. So it's a wonderful golf course for match play because of the risk-reward, the emphasis on risk-reward. And I don't know if it necessarily favors a longer hitter. Mm-hmm. We've seen that player emerge the last couple of years, but I also just believe that those are some of the better players in the world right now. And this new pool play or group play format, if you will, has let the cream rise to the top as opposed to the past format where it was lose and go home. Now where you play in a tournament format and then emerge to the elimination round, it has spelled the better players in the world coming out victorious. And I think that just kind of happens to be some of the longer players that they carry that characteristic as well.
Okay. I got a few other questions I'm going to ask you that I'm only going to ask you this week because of this unique format. So when you take a look at the bracket, I want you to pick the 2 lowest seed players from the groups to reach the quarterfinals on opposite sides. So basically, you know, 1 player from each side of the bracket that is the lowest seed in their group that you like. So obviously, and that's just to reach quarterfinals. So I'm going to give you an easy question first, if that's easy. But we always see these types of things happen in match play anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go with a couple of shorter hitters here. They are the lowest seeds in their group, and these come from the left side of the bracket, and that's Kevin Na. He's at number 61. He's in the group with Thomas Pieters, Tony Finau, and Alex Noren. And then the other guy I like from this side is Zach Johnson. He's number 54 in a group with Kuchar and Ross Fisher and Ikeda. Johnson has finished 9th here 2 years in a row at this golf course. He's also won 3 times in the state of Texas, and 2 of those are at Colonial Country Club, which is a similar course in the sense that it's shorter and you have to be spot on with your irons. And, you know, Zach is so good from the approach and on in, and I like that angle for a match play situation. Kevin Na, you know, very similar. good from the approach on in, a good scrambler, and we saw him take Rory all the way to extra holes in this tournament a couple years ago. So I like his prowess for match play. Both of those guys would be a couple of long shots that I would look at on that side of the bracket. The other side for me is a little bit more of a mystery, Greg. I don't mind taking a shot with Peter Uihlein. You know, he is a great player. The rap on him here is that he's never played in this tournament before, so this will be new to him. And then Luke List is the other guy who's been playing fantastic golf, had a 7th place finish last week at Bay Hill. And he's in a group where he could win. I mean, Justin Thomas is the top seed in that group, but Thomas has not fared well in match play in the past.
Yeah, that is surprising. And, I mean, a couple of events we might think, well, it's only been 2 events. But if it happens again this week, then we're going to start thinking, what's going on there with Justin? It might hurt him come Ryder Cup time. All right, talk about now the other question I wanted to ask you is give me 2 third seed players from the groups to reach the semifinals on opposite sides. So that wouldn't be the 4th lowest, now the 3rd lowest. We're going to go up 1, but also move them to the semifinals.
Well, I've got 2 bombers in this pairing and 2 medium range hitters. So from the left side, or let's see, I'm not sure if this is the left or the right side here. Yeah, this is the right side of the bracket. I'll take Webb Simpson.
Okay.
He's number 37 in the seeding. And he's in a group there that I think he can advance through. He's been very good in the short game this year. I believe number 1 on tour right now in scrambling, and I like that skill set in a match play format. You've got to be able to recover and get up and down and save strokes around the green. And then the other guy is Bubba Watson. You know, you talk about the long hitters being able to overpower this course.
Sure.
Bubba is certainly that. And, you know, his short game has improved remarkably this year as opposed to last year. So he's another guy in that 3rd hole that I think is a little bit of a live dog, if you will. And then from the other side of the bracket, Thomas Pieters, you know, his amateur career, he's had some great match play experience. He also did very well in the Ryder Cup, this past Ryder Cup. And the other guy is Jason Dufner, who I like as a match play player, very steady off the tee. If he can get the putter going, that's usually what is his nemesis. But if he can get the putter going, he can definitely win some matches.
All right. Now, Brady, out of those 8 players, who's your favorite? And out of those 8, though, who would be your favorite to go all the way and win it? And we've seen, again, crazy things happen in match play before, including long shots win the championship. So out of those 8 players, who would be your favorite?
I really like Zach Johnson. I think Zach has a great ability for match play. We've seen him do very, very well in the Ryder Cup. His record here at the match play event, this tour event, is right at 500, but his record in the Ryder Cup is very strong, nearly spotless. Mm-hmm. Like I say, he's won in the state of Texas a few times before. He's won at Colonial Country Club, which is a shorter course where you have to be. We know what kind of wedge player he is, and I think you know, he can get that. He can't get the ball out in the fairway as long as some of these other guys, but he'll certainly be accurate. And then his approach into the greens and around the greens and on the greens is really where I believe his strengths lie. And it's turned into 2 straight 9th place finishes here the last 2 years at this same golf course. So at 60 or 70 to 1, I think he's a pretty good long shot to go all the way.
Yeah, and by the way, he's 5-0-1 in his last 6 President's Cup or Ryder Cup matches. So that shows you. And by the way, he is. It's possible that if he does get out of the group, and Dustin Johnson gets out of the group, then it would be a rematch when Dustin Johnson beat Zach Johnson last year in the round of 16. So. Yeah. Keep that.
Yeah, I remember that, and I can't remember what the score was. Obviously, Dustin went on to win, but if I recall, it was a pretty decent match for a little while.
All right. By the way, did you come up with any just normal picks? Like, do you have anybody that you're favoring this week in this crazy setup? It's not easy to pick winners in match play. It's very hard.
Yeah, it's so difficult, Greg, because, normally you're looking at a player's skill set and you expect that to come to fruition over the course of 4 days. And here you're limited to such a small sample. It may not even go an entire 18 holes in these matches. So it's really difficult to try and apply a player's skill set to this golf course and hope that it holds up for, 15, 16 holes against another player. I think you have to look hard at how these guys have fared in match play in the past. You mentioned Zach Johnson's ability at the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup. I think you have to look at that. And, there is certainly a little luck involved, too. If you are going to be betting these matchups this week, I would scale down the amount bet as to what you're usually betting in golf tournaments, because this one is very volatile and random.
All right. Now, also, what I normally ask you, I'm going to also ask you again this week. And I want to add just one more thing, and that is give me a head-to-head matchup. So let's just talk about the matches that are going to happen over the next few days, or just talk about, of course, what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's the good thing about match play is we get some golf on Wednesday, so we don't have to wait an extra day. So is there a match odds, particular player that you like based on what you've seen so far?
Well, you mentioned earlier in the conversation Justin Thomas, and if this is going to be another year where he does not perform well in match play, then it becomes more of a trend or a pattern or something for real than just an anomaly. And he will be paired against Luke List. And we talked also about how List is a guy that could possibly reach the quarters and has been a hot player as of late.
I like that.
In this particular matchup, you can get like plus 170 I've seen on Luke List to win this matchup.
That's nice.
So that to me looks like pretty good value.
I like that one. Yes, Luke List is also playing some really good golf. And by the way, not only does Justin Thomas not fared well in this event, he lost the President's Cup match to Hideki Matsuyama as well. So keep that in mind. All right. So and everything else going okay for you out in Vegas with the college basketball tournament going on? I would think it's pretty busy there.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know that my full-time job is making tee times for people that want to come and play in Las Vegas, and they all come to watch basketball and play golf in the month of March. So keeping me busy between handicapping and booking tee times.
And what's do you have a website for that, Brady?
Yeah, it's lvteetimes.com. The company is called Tee Times USA, teetimesusa.com or lvteetimes.com.
Brady, I appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week, and a couple more weeks. It's the Masters.
Thanks so much, guys. Have fun.
Thanks, Brady. All right, that's Brady Cannon. And by the way, just also to remind everybody, you can visit Covers Experts at experts.covers.com. And once again, you can take 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. Jeff, I was looking, of course, I've already filled out my brackets, and I do have the first pick this week, so I'm trying to get ready here. And out of the players that Brady talked about, there were a few that stuck out for me as well. Zach Johnson makes a lot of sense as a long shot. Now, the only thing is that, as I mentioned, he before he would even get to the quarterfinals, he'd have to beat Dustin Johnson. So that's not going to be an easy deal, but you are getting 66-1 from a player that has been red hot in these matchup situations. And, Zach probably not a bad player to take on the revenge factor after losing to him last year. And then also Luke List. We've I know you've taken him the last few weeks, so Luke List may not be a bad idea either, with Justin Thomas struggling in match play.
Yeah, those are two that definitely come to mind. I'm not so sure on Zach Johnson to get out of the round of 16 because he has such a length disadvantage if he runs into Dustin Johnson again. And we talked about, big hitters having the advantage of being able to take on those par fives and take on the drivable par four. That match last year, by the way, I looked it up while Brady was on. That was 5-4, Dustin over Zach. So that could be difficult. But I think that Zach's bracket, his group is winnable. I think Matt Kuchar has a certain advantage. To me, it's kind of a toss-up between those two. But yeah, again, Kuchar has a little bit of a length advantage, and we'll see how that matchup pans out when it comes up. And if I'm not mistaken, it might actually be a tomorrow match.
Well, which one of the players that he mentioned, which one of those 8 players that came to mind, besides List or Zach Johnson?
I like Thomas Pieters. He's one of those that I think can come out of the bottom half of that of his pod. Bubba Watson also kind of stood out to me, but if you're asking me to pick one, I am most in agreement with Brady on Thomas Pieters out of that group.
All right, and by the way, what do you think about the whole Justin Thomas thing? It's only been a couple of years, but still, also losing the President's Cup match. I gotta believe he is really gonna dial himself in this week. Look, you would have to agree with me that if he struggles this week, that might come into play at the Ryder Cup. Where do I put Justin in the Ryder Cup singles? I might not want to put him in an area where I would normally put a guy as talented as Justin Thomas.
Well, and sometimes you get that. There was always questions about where do you put Mickelson, who could throw in a Sunday clunker at the Ryder Cup, or do you really want to put Tiger in a position that it's all on him, because his Ryder Cup record wasn't very good either. I think that over time and with comfort, players do tend to get better with that. It was Justin Thomas's first team match play event, and so I'll give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt here. It is a little strange that he has fared so poorly in Austin, but again, even this time last year, he wasn't Justin Thomas. He was just a very good young player who had a couple of wins under his belt. So
yeah,
I think there may be a little bit more pressure. Having said that, I also remember that there was a certain NCAA final where not an individual final, but part of the team final, where it was Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth won.
All right. And by the way, 5 players that were that qualified for this event are not going to be here for whatever reason, including injury to Brooks Koepka. You got Ricky Fowler, Henrik Stenson, Justin Rose, and Adam Scott. So did you hear anything on why was it just rest, or as far as no other reason that came about?
Well, obviously with Koepka, it's the wrist injury, and we just got word shortly before we came on, at least I did, that Brooks Koepka is now ruling himself out of the Masters. The wrist is not ready. It's not going to be ready. So that's an injury thing, and it's now going deep into, I suppose, May. The other 4, I looked it up. They all skipped last year too. This seems to be the pattern that they want to use to set up for the really important event, which is in 2 weeks. So I don't know if that's perhaps something that the PGA Tour administration needs to look at. We have so many really, really good events, and they're all lined up, and players can't play 7 in a row. So how do you space them out?
Sure.
And some people skip Bay Hill, some people skip Houston, some people sit out Riviera, and now some people are sitting out WGCs.
Well, look, I mean, I think the match play situation, especially because it is so close to the Masters, is one of those where, I mean, look, if you don't play well the first few days, and it is a different type of experience when you're out there, it's not the same on a normal, hey, this is in some way going to be some way going to help me with the Masters. If things don't go very well the first few days, then it's you're done and it's on to another event. And then in some respects, maybe if you do make it all the way through, it could be pretty taxing, especially if you wind up going just about 18 holes in every match. So I could completely understand that with some of the other events in the same schedule range, why some players might decide, you know what, I think I'll take the week off.
Well, and I think that you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to the fatigue factor. Dustin Johnson played 112 holes last year to win the match play 2 weeks before the Masters.
Yeah.
And
then he
obviously
slips.
he was hot as a firecracker, and he was still the favorite.
Yeah.
But I think that is a consideration. You do not want 72 holes is plenty. You do not want to be playing and then an additional 40 holes.
Yep.
2 weeks before the Masters. And so in this rejuggling of the schedules, and remember that the Players' Championship is moving from the other side of the Masters to this side of the Masters, and something's got to get bumped. That may be something that really needs to be put into consideration, because anybody, if it's a question between the Masters and the match play, the match play is going to lose every time.
All right, let's welcome in our next analyst, and he is with ProGolfWeekly.com, a weekly digital magazine that covers pro golf around the world. ProGolfWeekly.com lead writer Joel Cook. And Joel, how's everything?
It's going great. Excited for match play this week. How about you guys?
Yeah, well, we'll see. I guess it all depends. I mean, I used to get excited about match play. Now I kind of wait it out to see how it goes because of all the upsets. You never know what kind of crazy matches you're going to get.
Oh yeah, it's so hard to pick this thing. I filled out a bracket on a website. I swear I've changed this thing 100 times. Not like, I don't know anything with the basketball one either. I already have 3 of my final 4 teams gone. But if I did know, it seems like that kind of format. Which teams are the good teams every year and who's bound to go far. There's just so much variance with the in the match play. You find guys who haven't been doing anything yet, all of a sudden seem to pull through. You have all these lower seeds every year. It's a tough thing to pick.
And by the way, there is another event going on. So it's not on the PGA Tour. There's one going on in the Dominican Republic, Joel?
There is. It's in the Dominican Republic. It's the Corrales Punta Cana Resort and Club Championship. It was actually a former Web.com event that got promoted into this spot. It's going to be going opposite the match play. And it's, for being an opposite field event, there's actually some really good talent there. You have Jim Furyk, who we finished 7th last week. Graham McDowell's there. Chris Wood, who I'm kind of surprised wasn't match play eligible. He took 2nd in Oman recently, so he can go different locations. Scott Piercy, Harold Barnes III. Also, really interesting is Corey Connors. After the first 3 rounds, you had to lead the first 3 rounds of the Valspar last week. Had some struggles on Sunday, but that's not really surprising for someone in that position for the first time. We get to see him in there. And the big side show there, Tony Romo is in the field for this event. He's a good golfer, though. As long as there's not playoffs, he should at least be reasonably competitive. But he's pretty close to scratch golfer. I think he'll be like Steph Curry last year, where he's not going to be a factor, but he's not going to embarrass himself either. But it's at least worth watching if his back holds up. You never know with him in that.
All right, sounds good. Let's get started now with this week's a big event on the PGA Tour, though, by going over our picks first. Since it's a different format with the brackets, we're going to make some quick picks. Then when we're done with the picks, then we'll go bracket hunting. So because just our picks can be a lot different than the bracket, because there's going to be some really good matchups in the round of 16 or say the quarters, and you might like 2 players that are playing each other to win the whole thing. So there's a big difference between leaving one player behind in the round of 16 and the quarters and also adding them to your picks. So that's why we'll do the picks first, so we won't give anything away for your brackets. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I got the first pick this week, so I'm going to make it pretty easy by going with the defending champ, Dustin Johnson, and he is sitting there as the favorite right now. Or one of the favorites, actually. Rory is a little bit ahead of Dustin Johnson right now at 7-1. Dustin Johnson 8-1. So McIlroy 7-1, Dustin Johnson 8-1. Then you have Thomas at 11, Day and Rahm at 12, Spieth at 16. So those are the top favorites for the event this week. So I'll take Dustin Johnson as my top pick. Who are you going to go with, Joel?
Well, this is a pretty difficult spot for me. I like more of the guys near the top. Pretty close between Rory and Thomas, but this despite not having much of a match play record, I think I'm going to go with Thomas this week. He's been real extremely hot. He finished second in his last event, the WGC Mexico, won the week before that. And he's, I think, looking at the brackets, and we'll get into more of that later, I think he's got a much easier path to the final than some of the other favorites. That plays into a little bit. If it was straight stroke play, I might have gone Rory instead, or I don't know, maybe he'd even be better in that format. I just think this is a setup for him. He's a different golfer than he was in the past when he had not so great in these tournaments. I think he could face down anybody.
All right, sounds good. So, Jeff, who do you got? Who's your top pick?
I'm surprised this guy has fallen to me because he's won 2 of the last 4 match plays, and last year he only went 6 holes before he went home to deal with a cancer-stricken mother. Jason Day has a 21-7 individual record in this event. He's my pick.
All right, Jason Day in there at 12-1, and he is your top pick coming off that win in 2016, and then, like you said, didn't last long last year. So my second pick, I will go with Sergio Garcia at 28-1. Joel, who's your second pick?
This gets pretty difficult here. I am I want to take Mickelson there, but I have a big issue with the bracket he's in. I'm worried not get to the first thing. I'll go with the other hot player, Paul Casey. He's been runner-up in this tournament twice. He's gone through pretty far in a number of these. He's another guy coming off a win. He's got 23-13 as career record in this event, and hopefully now that he's got that win under his belt, he'll come in confident. We'll see a new. I mean, he was good before when he wasn't super confident. So we'll see what the new everything has for him now.
All right, and keep in mind, Mickelson and Casey had not played until this week. Jeff had Casey, I had Mickelson. Since we passed on them, that gave you the opportunity to take Paul Casey. Jeff had the chance, if whether he wanted to take him or not. I know, Jeff, you like Paul Casey in match play, but you went with Jason Day. Who's your second pick?
I was hoping Paul Casey would fall one more spot because that's where I was definitely slotting him. That being the case, I remember, what was it, 3 years ago, where we went through this whole round of picking, and at the very end, I noticed that we had left Rory McIlroy off the list, and he was playing pretty good, and he won. I'm not doing it again.
All right, see if Rory can win back-to-back, and he sits there as the slight favorite at 7-1. All right, I'll go ahead and jump on Fleetwood at 33-1 as my third choice. Joel, who's your third choice?
My third choice, I'm gonna go with the different Englishman. Tyrrell Hatton is 35-1. Looks really good at the WGC Mexico recently. Played well in this tournament last year. I think he's due for a considerable run. Jeff,
you have Day and McIlroy. Who's your third pick?
Third pick is going to be somebody who's actually started to play much better, not only here but in the Ryder Cup as well, and he's hot. Phil Mickelson.
See if Phil can win back-to-back. That would be something. So you got 2 players that have won their last time out, McIlroy and Mickelson. All right, my long shot as we go into the players that are 50-1 or higher. I'm going to go to a player that has played well here in this event at 50-1, Rafa Cabrera Bello. Joel, who's your long shot?
Well, I was making pretty hard on Cabrera Bello being there. He said he's played this event great. He's done really well at the last 2 WGCs. So I'll go a little bit, not too much further down. There's some tempting names there, but I'm going to go with a 66-1 shot. I think Thomas Pieters is due to go through one of these pretty soon. He's played well before in this kind of format.
Okay.
He's looking better lately. I can see him pulling through.
All right, Pieters, 66-1. Jeff, who's your long shot?
Well, Joel and I are thinking along the same lines quite a bit because I was hoping Pieters would fall to that spot.
You're stealing his picks, Joel.
With how well I've been picking lately, he should consider that problem.
Yeah. let's see, readjusting here. I tell you what, Gary Woodland has proven himself to be a solid match play player. Not year in, year out necessarily, but remember he was runner-up not all that long ago. I will take Woodland at 66-1.
Yeah, Gary Woodland. Keep in mind he's 7-1 in his last 8 match play. Let's see, where is he? Remember you mentioned he lost the 2015 final to Rory at Harding Park. He was 1-0 last year when he withdrew. So 7-1 in his last 8. So Gary Woodland off to a good start in match play at 66-1. All right, my top alternate. I'm going to go ahead and take Mr. Patrick Reed. He seems to be playing better golf. I know he hasn't been on top of his game in match play lately, but he is playing better golf. So he'll be my top alternate at 28-1. Joel, who is your number 1 alternate?
Did I miss someone taking Rahm already? I didn't think I did.
No, you did not take him.
No, I'll go with him. I know the form's been a little off. It's mostly to spend the weekend for him that he's been struggling with, so this could be a little different, I guess. But he looked extremely confident in this format last year. He was absolutely smashing everyone until the Dustin Johnson match, and even then he had a pretty impressive comeback down the stretch.
Okay.
So, not great odds, but 12-1 for how well he played last year.
All right. Next up, Jeff, your alternate. Who is it going to be?
I'm going to take a flyer on Patrick Cantlay. I think he's got a good bracket to come out of and may be able to get some momentum going into the knockout round.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to see him not in the long shot category, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, me too.
So Cantlay sitting there barely inside at 45-1. Rookie in this event. All right, number 2 alternate final picks. And this is in case anything happens before tomorrow for our long shots. So I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and take Zach Johnson. Again, I like Zach coming in here red hot in match plays in the Ryder Cup and President's Cup formats at 66-1. Next up, Joel, alternate long shot.
I'm going to go way down list for this one. I really like in this format Johnson Vegas at 175-1. I know it's tough. He's got a tough bracket to get out of, but he's had a group play. I love what I've seen from him at the President's Cup last year and outdoor match play events.
Yeah,
his putting's a little up and down, but he gets going. He has a chance to go really far in this.
No, I like that pick as well. Like you said, he beat Spieth in the President's Cup last year and lost the group only because he lost that match to he lost that match to Bubba, right? And Bubba went undefeated in the group, and that was it.
Yes, I think there were 3 of them that finished 2-1, and Bubba ended up getting through in the tiebreaker. However, they did that.
Yeah, so he's played well so far, or at least recently in match play. Jeff, alternate long shot.
Now, speaking of Bubba Watson, he's sitting there at 50-1. You just mentioned the situation from last year, and he's playing well again.
Yep.
Had the win at LA, played well last week in Orlando, so we'll round out the list with him.
All right, so there's our picks. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to ask you guys. We're going to go into this bracket questions. So first of all, Joel, which is the toughest and easiest 4-man group?
I think the toughest one is actually number 7 from bottom to end. The Sergio Garcia, Xander Schauffele, Fratelli, Sharma, and Garcia's traditionally pretty good in match play. He looked really good last time. We saw him in the match play event. Xander has not been in this format yet, but we've seen him stare down a lot of players, and he's just so strong tee to green, seems to come back around. And Fratelli played at the University of Texas. He's sort of a local guy in that regard. And having Sharma as the lowest ranked player in your group, that's pretty scary for the other guys in there. He didn't look like he was too big for the moment.
That's a very interesting decision because, you got chock full of countries there and 3 rookies with Sergio, but those are some pretty hot rookies. So, yes. That should be interesting.
And also,
go ahead.
Okay. Also, this is only because of the top 2 mostly, but that 14, when I'm putting this together, I hate so much that Phil Mickelson and Rafa Cabrera Bello are in the same bracket. I think if either of them could win the entire thing if they get out, unfortunately only one of them can get out.
Yeah.
And then I know Cody Ayer doesn't have a lot of experience. Charles Hall III, he advanced last year. He's always someone who's trouble in these events, pretty experienced too.
Okay, and what about an easy group? You have a group that you think is the easiest?
Yeah, the one I really stands out to me that I don't really like that much, Group 16. I know Matt Kuchar actually has a phenomenal record in this event, but most of it wasn't recent, and he just doesn't look all himself recently. Fisher has been pretty terrible recently. Akeda can do absolutely nothing outside of Japan, and Jack Johnson, he has a pretty good history in this, but I just don't like as much as what I've seen from him in recent years. I haven't picked to get out of that bracket. I don't think. I think there's a lot of other brackets he wouldn't get very far in.
All right, Jeff, what do you think? What do you think the toughest bracket is? The toughest group?
I think the toughest group actually is the one that with Jordan Spieth and Patrick Reed.
Yeah, that's the one I think is the toughest. Yeah.
and maybe it's just the fact that those two guys know each other so well because they've been Ryder Cup and President's Cup partners now going back to 2014. But I think that the winner of that match will probably emerge from the group. But I think Li Hao Tong is kind of a dangerous floater, and so is Schwartzel. And Schwartzel has played decently in some President's Cups, and so obviously it's a top-heavy quadrant. But I still think that that's probably the one. As far as the easiest group, not the weakest group, and maybe I misunderstood, but to me the easiest group is at the top, where Dustin Johnson, I think, is head and shoulders above off-form Kevin Kisner, Adam Hadwin, and Bernd Wiesberger.
Well, that's close enough. I mean, because if he's that much, I mean, look, there are some good players here, of course. So if you think he's that much more better than those players, then it's the easiest group. So I can see that definitely, which is one of the other reasons why I decided it was a no-brainer for me to go with Dustin Johnson, because I figured, well, I don't think he shouldn't experience much difficulty there. Normally he shouldn't. And then even the next, even in the round of 16, I'm not so sure. He's going to have
that's a weak group. That he would face.
Yeah. So that's why I figured, taking Dustin if he gets off to a hot start, because of the early first 3 or 4 days. You probably don't want to face Dustin Johnson if he makes it to the weekend. And by the way, Charles Schwartzel is 10-5 over his last 15 match play contests, including that President's Cup win last year against Matt Kuchar. He only lost last year in the group because Paul Casey beat him and went 3-0. Schwartzel was 2-1, and Schwartzel lost the group in 16, also going 2-1. So he's lost one match the last 2 years, and he can't even make it out of the quarter of the group. So that's why that's a very tough group there. Spieth, Reed, Hao Tong Lee, and Schwartzel. Okay. Next question, and I'm just going to ask you guys as fans. Joel, as a fan, and I know you're a fan, because whatever you say here is not going to happen. No matter what any of us say is not going to happen, because we don't get anything we want in match play, usually, ever. So as a fan, what would be your favorite semifinals?
Semifinal. Well, the final, just definitely seeing Mickelson get through. For that semifinal, him against Thomas, I think would be a lot of fun. I'd really like to see. They've both been so hot. I mean, I know they just got
a rematch.
Hole,
yeah,
that was only one hole. Now we're talking a whole match. You can see them go back and forth.
There you go.
And kind of there and another. I mean, if Thomas can't make that through, I'd like to see Pat Perez. He's such a great personality, as you think. It'd be fun to watch him play someone like
Pat Perez and Justin Thomas. I wouldn't have guessed that. Okay.
Well, not in the semifinal. They'd have to
of course, but that's still
quarterfinals.
That's okay. And all right, so Jeff, what would it be for you?
I think the semifinal that I would like to see out of this group, as a fan, not based on my picks, but I think Phil Mickelson against Paul Casey a couple of desert rats, so to speak, Arizona State guys, and strong match play guys would be great on one side. And then Jason Day, I think his story would be great, winning 3 out of 5 and having essentially skipped last year, and put him up against Patrick Reed, Captain America, or put him up against Jordan Spieth. I think either one of those, because you had Spieth and Day battling for number 1 just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be, you know, what I'd like to see is, say, Patrick Reed in the final against somebody on the opposite side who would be in the Ryder Cup. You know,
Sergio,
that
Rory.
There you go. that would work fine. That would be great to see something.
Yeah, Reed, Rory, that went pretty well for Reed the last time, didn't it? I believe they played recently.
Yeah, it did. Matter of fact, if you look at Patrick Reed, you know, again, let's keep in mind that after the Ryder Cup, you would think, okay, well, Patrick Reed is going to be this awesome match play participant, but he's lost 4 straight. You know, he lost the President's Cup to Oosthuizen. So let's keep that in mind. And he was 0-2-1 last year at this event. He did lose to Dustin Johnson in the 2016 round of 16 here. But anyway, just keep that in mind. But Patrick Reed seems to be playing better, so maybe there's possibilities. And maybe we could see Patrick Reed in Hatton in the quarters. That could be maybe they'll take their clubs out and go up against each other. You know, they could be hot-tempered, especially Hatton. So,
yeah. What I find interesting is that Spieth and Reed were drawn into the same group just days, hours really, after Patrick Reed was denied a drop and responded by saying, "Oh, I guess your name has to be Jordan Spieth to get this drop."
And what about if it is a Reed Hatton matchup? What do you think? How closely do you think they're going to be keeping an eye on the fans this week after what we've been hearing with Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy? Is anything happening with that, whether it's the alcohol? Is there anything the PGA Tour is going to do? Is there anything they should do? Or, you know, they're very deliberate. We know that, to make changes. So while they're thinking about it, something could happen, and maybe it happens this week. I'm not saying anything crazy, but just, you know, some more annoyances, especially if we get a Ryder Cup type match. What do you think, Jeff?
Well, I think that the PGA Tour is definitely going to look at it, and I do know that they have another set of meetings with tournament directors in conjunction with the Players' Championship. So we are, about 6 weeks or so away from getting every tournament director in the same room and giving everybody a chance to air their opinions and what works and what doesn't work. So I imagine we're going to probably tread water up until then. I think individually, some tournaments may think about whether to cut off alcohol sales a little bit earlier in the day. But like you, I don't think we're gonna see anything too quickly. So many tournaments are already into their promotions and setting up and things like that. But I think once we get into May, there may be a consensus when everybody's in the same room about what can we do, because we want the excitement of the 16th hole in Phoenix. We don't want the louts, and it's such a fine line. That's what they're trying to straddle.
Joel, you think anything's going to happen?
Not yet. See if there's any more high-profile ones this week. Without Tiger in the field, maybe it'll be a little more subdued, but I doubt it.
All right, look, you got a ton of possible Ryder Cup matches, so that's all you're gonna need. It's it. You get let's see. I mean, what do you get? Tommy Fleetwood and Dustin Johnson. Again, I said Hatton and Reed.
Yeah. At the same time, I don't recall but only one kind of incident from this event that kind of escalated. It's a little bit more low key. It's certainly far less us against them. Although, if you get Ian Poulter and Patrick Reed in a semifinal or something, that could that could obviously have a little bit of a factor. But honestly, the only WGC match play incident I recall involved two Americans. It was when Davis Love was trying to dethrone Tiger Woods, and this was like 15 years ago. And somebody got under Davis Love's skin and wound up being ejected at La Costa.
Okay. All right. Now let's get into just your bracket predictions, and of course these could be a little bit different based on your regular picks. So Joel, go ahead and give me your. What are your semifinals, Joel?
Well, got on the left side of the bracket over there. I've got Dustin Johnson against Tyrrell Hatton. I've been changing this a lot. I have a Dustin Johnson Tommy Fleetwood matchup. But before that, I'm going back on who I think is going to win that. Yeah, I got Dustin Johnson, Tyrrell Hatton that side. The other side, Rafa Cabrera-Bello and Xander Schauffele.
Well, you got Schauffele in the semifinals.
Yes.
All right.
I think he's got great temperament for this.
Okay, Schauffele against Cabrera-Bello. All right. And then who would you have in the final?
Cabrera-Bello over Hatton.
Wow. Going with Cabrera-Bello. I hope that works out. I'd like that.
It's tough. I mean, I could see Cabrera-Bello making all the way to we're losing the first round. Just that thing again. I hate that he and Mickelson are in the same bracket. I think they're both too good in this possible, possibly.
Yeah, because look at Cabrera-Bello again. Even last year, even though he didn't make it out of the group, he lost in that playoff to Charles Howell. So that's pretty good. He was the third place finisher in 2016. So he's played well on this golf course in this only 2 years at this golf course in this event, and he's played well in both. He lost the semifinals of the Volvo match play in 2012, and that was a good field. And he beat Jimmy Walker in the Ryder Cup.
Yes.
So he's 14-5 in his career in match play, and Cabrera-Bello also had a nice run at the WGC Mexico. All right, Jeff, who would you have in the semifinals?
I have one semifinal as Jason Day and Thomas Pieters.
Okay.
I have the other semifinal as Paul Casey against Rory McIlroy.
All right, and who is your winner?
I'm going to go with Jason Day. Maybe 22, 23 holes. Let's go.
Over Rory or Casey?
Over Rory, yes.
Over Rory. Well, that would be a final that I believe who is it? NBC that gets this coverage. Yeah, NBC. Whatever. Why did what was Johnny Miller doing until last week?
I think we have to remember that this is the year that Johnny Miller starts to step away. He's not retired. Maybe you call it semi-retired.
Okay.
But his contract runs through the end of this year. He's 70 whatever years of age, and not sure how long he wants to do this anymore. And so this is the transition year. He'll do the big events and the events that he wants to do. But now you're noticing that they're starting to test David Duval as a studio or as the 18th tower guy, and they've tested Justin Leonard and some of those others. They're trying to find the next Johnny Miller this year.
I haven't seen Dave. They've had David Duval on. You said they had him where on NBC's coverage?
In some of the early season events, and maybe it was more the not in this stretch necessarily.
Got it.
But going back to the it's not the Bob Hope.
I'd give David Duval a shot. Out of all the analysts,
I like David Duval, but I almost like him better in the studio. He's such a cerebral guy that I'm not sure that I want him calling action in front of me. I like the way he interprets things and digests things and then comes out with the kind of the big picture idea. I think him and Brandel Chambly make a great pairing. I don't know if I'd break that up.
Okay.
To put one of them in the 18th tower.
Who do you think would be a good critic for that job, Joel?
Well, I mean, Chambly already seems to get under a lot of people's skin. I mean, that's Miller's big thing. I mean, I don't know. I actually do like Miller a lot. I'm not happy that he's scaling back.
Yeah, the last few weeks before when he wasn't there, it wasn't the same. You know, so especially with a lot of the interesting stuff going on. You know, it was pretty disappointing not to have him there. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure he's got a lot of opinions. I'm guessing he's not on Twitter. I didn't even think to look. But that doesn't sound like his kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know if NBC Golf Channel would think about it, but the guy who doesn't get enough work and may be available for the right phone call is Curtis Strange. I thought he was great with ESPN and ABC, especially with Paul Azinger. Fox has picked up Azinger and to a certain extent Strange, but Strange has the reduced role now, and I would love to see Curtis Strange get back into an 18th tower on a regular basis.
Yeah, what kind of a no-brainer is it going to be in about 10 years when Phil retires? I mean, talk about it wasn't until a few years ago, maybe even a couple of years, that I hadn't realized just how intellectual he was in every little detail about what goes on, you know, on the golf course. I mean, you know it by watching him play, but it wasn't until, you know, listening to him in more in-depth, longer interviews that I realized that, oh my goodness, this guy would be probably an incredible analyst, breaking things down. He'd probably be the John Madden of golf.
Well, he might be, and that you know, brings up another good question. I think Phil would be a good 18th tower guy, but you could just as easily see him as a studio guy because of the way he overanalyzes things sometimes.
All right. So next, I want to ask you guys same question I asked Brady, and that is a couple more questions. Joel, pick 2 lowest seed players from the groups to reach the quarterfinals on opposite sides. So go ahead and give me, in other words, again, we're going to start with the lowest seed player in a group that you like basically the most. You can give me anywhere from 2 to 4. It's up to you.
Well, I wouldn't say he's my.
You've already given us Schauffele, right? Schauffele is one. No, Schauffele is number 2. Okay.
Two, yeah. I mean, Zach Johnson mostly because his path is pretty weak, and we don't. I know he could get Dustin Johnson in the second round, but I mean, I'm not even positive that's going to happen. But yeah, he's like over there. On the other side, I could see. I can't quite pull the trigger on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those weeks where Siwoo Kim shows up. Now that he's finally got some of that experience under his belt, and
okay,
and maybe even Julian Fury, the last guy in the field. Leishman hasn't been quite there, although he got a little better on Sunday last week. Brandon Gracie seemed to never know what you're going to get with him, and then actually, you know, now I think about it, that's actually a tougher group than I first thought, but. Yeah, those are most of the 2 I like. Zach Johnson and Siwoo Kim.
All right. Jeff?
I think Luke List coming out of the Justin Thomas group, he's got a fair to middling chance to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And then over on the other side of the bracket, this may be a little bit of a sentimental pick, but I like the bracket too. I think Ian Poulter's got a chance to emerge from his group with Fleetwood, Berger, and Chappell.
You know, if Poulter can just get out of the group, then he becomes dangerous.
Yes.
So he's just got
very much so.
And he could get out of the group. I mean, now Fleetwood's going to be tough, but if you look at Berger, he's just 1-6 in his career in match play, and he played here on this course in 2016 and went 0-3. So maybe Berger, maybe that's a good group for that to happen. Chappell was just 1-2 last year, so that might not be a bad group for Poulter to come out of if Tommy Fleetwood's not on top of his game. Anyone else, Jeff? Those are your 2. Okay.
Those are the 2 that jump out.
How about number 3 seeded players, Jeff? Give me a 3rd seeded on each side to reach the semis.
Yeah, I honestly think I've picked Thomas Pieters to come out of his group at number 3.
There you go. That made it easy.
That's almost a no-brainer, considering that he's going up against some players that are just not consistent. Alex Noren, obviously at the top of the group, is probably the best option
and
there.
then Bubba
From
Watson.
the other side of the bracket, Bubba Watson. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. That's a real toss-up group, and I'm kind of torn between whether Bubba comes out of that group or Brandon Grace, who has had a pretty good President's Cup record, if that is a factor in getting him out of that group.
Yeah, Bubba lost to Fisher in the round of 16 last year, and lost in the group the year before. But he was 1-1-1, so he's been pretty good. 14-11 career match play record. Joel, give us a third. Give us a number 3 seed player from the group to give you 2 of them to make the semis.
I like Peters a lot too.
Okay.
I also mentioned John in Vegas. If he can just get past, that Rory Harman Vegas threesome right there, that's really brutal. I think, and whoever gets escapes from that's going to go pretty far. I really like Vegas's mentality. I think he can get through there. Kyle Stanley is another one who has had some good results lately. He's looking better, and I think he's a lot stronger mentally than he's been in the past. And I know Jeff mentioned him earlier, Lee Hao Tong. I mean, everyone's talking about Speed versus Reed, but Lee, he was really good at the Eurasia Cup recently, and he's shown really good nerves in one. He stared down Rory McIlroy pretty good at a tournament recently.
That's a good one.
Someone I wouldn't be surprised to see that either. Like a Peters-Lee second half matchup.
Okay.
Is something I definitely see happening.
Okay. And out of Zach, Peters, Lee, Kim, Stanley, Vegas, and Surrey, who is give me one of those to win it all.
Vegas.
Vegas. All right. 175-1. Johnny Vegas. Jeff, give me one of yours between List, Watson, Peters, and Poulter.
I think Peters has the best chance to just kind of ignore all the numbers except the ones at the end. And we've seen him jump up at opportune times, and boy, he was a strong Ryder Cup player 2 years ago. Peters out of that group.
By the way, none of us said much really about Jordan Spieth. Is that a surprise? Probably not, right? Because of the way he's been playing. But can he pull a Rory this week? Joel.
And someone's going to, as possibly. I mean, his putter's been getting a little better here and there. He obviously has the mentality to pull through. He's in that brutal first group. If he gets to there, I think he has the confidence where he could make a good run.
Yeah, just 1-4-1 in his last 6, including losing both the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup matches. So he's been a little bit on the slide, not just recently, but also in these match play situations, sitting there at 16-1. Let's see. Another player I think we should keep an eye on that we've all kind of liked his progress is Alex Noren. At 33-1, he's 11-5 thanks to 9-2 in his last 11. Jeff, and last year he lost to DJ in the quarters.
Yes, and I think that that group really comes down, I think, to Noren and Peters. And Peters is the guy that seems to come up when you don't expect him. But yeah, I could see Noren coming through that group just as well.
What do you think about Hideki Matsuyama, Joel? Do you think what do you need to see out of him before you think he's ready for the Masters?
I just need to see him out there more. He took a long time off. It was just kind of so last week. I mean, he's got the game for the Masters. I'm sure he'll get there, but you definitely like to see him get out pool play, which is possible. He's not in a particularly strong group. Patrick Cantley getting through that one, but I wouldn't be surprised with really any of the first 3 on there, Matsuyama or Cameron Smith either.
Another player maybe to keep an eye on is Louis Oosthuizen. He's got the Jason Day group, but and remember, this was the final, the 2016 final, Oosthuizen Day. So if Oosthuizen can get out of the group, and Jason Day is not playing his best golf either. I mean, he's doing better than Spieth, but he's still not where we know he could be. So anything is possible. And Oosthuizen is 18-10, Jeff, lifetime. 9-2 in his last 11, including a President's Cup win last year over Patrick Reed. And last year he only didn't make it out of the group because he lost in that playoff to Fisher.
Yeah, and I think that if he got drawn into some of these other groups into Fleetwood's group or Hatton's group or Kuchar's group, then I think we'd be all picking him to move through. Again, I think Day has really just established himself as a strong player, and and Day's well rested. I mean, he played last week and he was all right. It was a top 25. It wasn't a top 10. But that's a week to get the rust off and to get himself ready to go. And he has played well in this format. He played well in the previous format. He's the only guy to win under the straight knockout bracket and now out of the pod.
Any chance that Mayazato could pull Tanera this year? I mean, he did win 4 on the Japan Tour last year. And I mean, is there a player that you guys look at? I mean, you took Vegas at 175, so there's not many other players below Vegas there as far as the odds are concerned. And Brady did go with Uline as a potential sleeper, long shot player, and he's sitting there at 175-1. But you've got, and you did mention Surrey, Joel, but you have those other 3. Are they all from Japan? Those 300-1 shots?
They are.
I believe they are.
Yeah. Okay. Which one is the best? Is it Mayazato?
That's probably who I would say. I mean, right in terms of in Japan, it's probably Akita recently, but he can't seem to get anything to translate over here. So yeah, I'd go to Mayazato.
What about the groups that they're in, Jeff? Anybody that you think could surprise and win a group out of those 3 based on where they're at?
That's tough. One thing that's really been difficult, we talk about it all the time, is that when the Japanese players come over here, they just don't seem to get any sort of traction. And I think that's why you see them all at 300-1 is, with the exception of Matsuyama, show us something. And
how about Akita being in the Zach Johnson, Kuchar, Fisher group?
That's the one that I think maybe has a chance because it's just so evenly matched that with a hot day or a hot couple of days he could pull through. But it's just one of those where even if you go back to the old format, the Japanese players didn't play all that impressively, and even if you go to the old pre-WGC format where they actually had a regional, so to speak, in Asia, and it always came out of Japan, the Japanese players always finished last.
All right. Interesting. Before I let you go, Joel, a couple of things. First of all, who do you like right now, 2 weeks out? Who are you leaning towards with the Masters?
I mean, I wasn't really leaning towards Rory at first, but he sure showed a lot last week. If he's confident, that's going to be difficult. But I mean, look out for Adam Scott at 50-1 odds. But if I had to pick someone, I think we're going to see. I would say Thomas for a second consecutive major.
Yeah, you're still looking at Thomas. What do you think, Jeff? Anybody there? I mean, Rory, we already talked about. It's still going to be look, Sergio broke through. I don't know if Rory needs a few more years like Sergio to finally break through, but it is surprising Rory hasn't been able to win the Masters yet. So maybe this is his year. Who knows? But I mean, Justin Rose, we know how good he is there, but now he's down to 12-1 with the way he's been playing. So there are going to be some, Casey might be the best value.
I think Casey's the best value. I think with McIlroy, remember the little extra on McIlroy is now he needs this for the career Grand Slam. And he should have had it, 4 or 5 years ago, until he wound up over by Butler Cabin Butler Cabin on the back 9 and not after the round. So I don't know how that may play into it. He's certainly going to go in with some confidence. I think Dustin Johnson might have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, so to speak, because of the bad luck last year. He's playing consistently. He did not win at Pebble Beach, but this is his first start off a couple of top tens. So he's not that far off, and he might just have the motivation to say, this one was taken from me by circumstance last year. I'm getting it this year.
All right, Joel, Pro Golf Weekly. They're going to do anything different this week with match play?
Just the usual. She'll have plenty of, a lot of updates and, recaps on everything that goes on. They're usually pretty in depth, so those are good to look at. Right now, we got our storylines for up, the extended storylines, talking a little more about DJ, all the players coming off wins. You Bill, Rory, Casey. Talk about why Rahm's not being talked about as much. Sharma being back. There's a lot of good there. My field rankings are on there too. So that's ProGolfWeekly.com.
Thanks, Joel. We'll talk to you next week. Couple more weeks, the Masters.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, that's Joel Cook, ProGolfWeekly.com. And Jeff, we talked a little bit about the crowd situation, which is one of the topics at your Around the Tours report. What else do you have for the listeners out there if they want to check out the Around the Tours report at Prime Sports Network? And keep in mind, of course, too, that you'll have the preview, the early preview of next week's event in Houston on Friday at PGAtour.com.
Yeah, that's true, and kind of a little different with Houston. It's not the Shell Houston Open anymore, and that's kind of put it into a little bit of limbo because they are one of those that is going this year without a sponsor.
Wow.
There's about 3 of them, and it's a little surprising that Houston's one of them, but Shell decided not to renew, and they have not. They've not found a replacement.
Do we know who's going to be there, by the way? I mean, Stenson and Fowler usually go there, right?
They do.
Is that what they're doing? They're skipping this week?
Plays there.
Okay.
With the match play now in there as well. Again, there's so many good events. You've got to pick which ones that you feel is going to best prepare you. There are guys like Mickelson who say, I need a run up. I need to get competitive rounds in before I get to Augusta. Then there are guys like Tiger who say, I want to be on the range working on specific things away from everybody else. And it's kind of gone back and forth. It used to be nobody played the week before a major. Now it seems maybe the pendulum has shifted the other way. And so we'll get some good names. Paul Casey was a winner in Houston, 9 years ago now? He's got a chance to go back.
Okay.
It'll be interesting. Over on the Around the Tours report, we're going to talk about Tiger's first captaincy. He was announced last week as the U.S. captain for next year's President's Cup in Australia. Ernie Els is going to be the international captain there. We've got a number of exemptions for the U.S. Open and U.S. Women's Open that were handed out by the USGA in recent days. Ernie Els included with that, and we're gonna bring back the LPGA's Tournament of Champions. Just like Kapalua, the LPGA had one for about 2 decades. It disappeared for a while. It's coming back with a unique format to open next season in Florida.
All right, sounds good. Around the Tours every week. You can check it out. It's available right now on our website at primesportsnetwork.com and also available on our website. You can click on the You Wager banner and place a wager on match play. Again, it starts tomorrow. Don't snooze. It starts tomorrow, so get your picks in. And if you do that at You Wager, we're also going to provide that $100 risk-free wager when you sign up this week and make a $100 minimum deposit. I want to also thank Brady Cannon for joining us from Covers. You can check out Covers experts like Brady for not just golf, but all the sports at experts.covers.com, and you're going to get 50% off any purchase by using the promo code PRIME50. That's PRIME50. And check out all the great articles at ProGolfWeekly.com as well, including Joel Cook and our good friend John Daly there, who handles everything for ProGolfWeekly.com. So that's Paul Daly. What did I say?
John Daly, which would have been fun.
Did I say John Daly? Really? Maybe that was me trying to make sure I didn't say John Daly, and I said it. All right, interesting. It would be funny, wouldn't it?
It would.
They just got 10,000 new views at Pro Golf Weekly, and maybe and 8,000 complaints 2 seconds later. All right. So we'll next week it's Houston, and then in 2 weeks the Masters. And by the way, when we have Masters coverage on this show, when we have the majors events, we're going to have 3 shows. So we're going to have our preview show, then we're going to have our round 2 preview show. Actually, what do we do? 2 or 3 shows? 3 or 4 shows? I forget.
We waited until the cut, and then we did
we wait till the
show.
cut. That's a good one. I like that one. Yeah, we don't need to go into the second round. Okay, you can watch You can watch the Golf Channel for that. But check us out for previewing the 3rd round and then the 4th round. So 3 shows for the Masters. We'll remind you about that again next week, of course, here on our show. More programming coming up tomorrow. That includes our Sweet 16, speaking of brackets, our Sweet 16 preview at 5 o'clock tomorrow. Steve Merrill from Covers is going to join us. That should be a lot of fun. And then later in the week, we'll also talk to Dan Shanka for draft coverage, NFL draft coverage, and of course we also, by the way, have the Kentucky Derby on our minds with the prep races, the Louisiana Derby. We're going to talk about that on Saturday with John Hardoon from the Sheet. So a very busy time of sports. Hockey playoffs coming soon, NBA playoffs coming soon, and the Major League Baseball regular season begins next week. And we will have Steve Merrill joining us from Covers.com as well on Monday to preview the season with Scott Zolatoro. That'll wrap it up for Prime Sports Golf, for Jeff Shane, for Joel Cook, for Brady Cannon, and for not John Daly, but Paul Daly. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in here on the Prime Sports Radio Network.